Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. A light sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. I'm back. You missed me? Well, whether you did or not, you're stuck with me now. This is Jen. I am the hostess tonight. I'm sure Brian and Henno did an amazing job, as always, covering while I was gone the last couple weeks. And but now I'm back. So with me is Brian. Hey, Brian.
Howdy.
And Henno couldn't join us because he has really, really, really bad headache tonight. So I hope he feels better, because we all have been there and it sucks.
Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah. I'm still dealing with, I had that kind of headache yesterday that, in between your eye and nose, where it just feels like someone's just jabbing something in there, hurts to have your eye open even. Those are brutal headaches. Those are the worst ones I get.
Yeah.
Because nothing ever seems to help him, and that's where Henno kind of said he was too. So I feel bad for him on that one because definitely, like you said, I know exactly what that feels like.
That is no good.
Mm-mm.
No good at all, folks.
Nope.
So it'll just be the two of us, but that's all right because we'll have a good old time just like always.
Yep.
So I guess, since I've been gone.
Yep.
The rule of thumb is the person who's gone gets to go first.
Yep.
So, how has my week been? Well, actually, the last 2 weeks. So, after our last podcast, Brian, you made the comment, just kind of devil's advocate comment, when I said, I think I got everything together and I'm holding myself together fairly well. And your comment was, just keep in mind, I thought I was holding myself together pretty well before I sought help.
Yep.
And it kind of resonated with me, and I thought on that a little bit more, and I'm like, and I started really paying attention to the comments that my husband was making,
right.
Some of the things that were going on around me, and I'm like, I need to take some action. So I made an appointment with my doctor. And I sat down and I needed to make an appointment with her anyways because my medicine, she was holding it hostage, as doctors like to do.
Right, because they want you to come in, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
They want you to come in. So
mine just did the same thing. Yeah.
It's like, no more meds till you get your butt in here.
Yep.
Like, fine. So, yes, so she held my meds hostage till I went and saw her. But we sat down and we talked. And I do have an amazing doctor, which I cannot express how awesome that is.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. You do have a really good doctor, because I had her for a short time too, and she was great. I hate the fact that I don't have her anymore. My doctor is fine. He's a good doctor, but I wish I still had Dr. Rao.
She was laughing because she moved about 2 or 3 times since I started seeing her, about 5-6 years ago, maybe close to 7 years ago. Anyways, she's moved a few times, and I keep following her.
Yeah.
And the last time she moved, I saw her, and she's like, "This is it." I'm like, "Well, I will follow you wherever you go."
Right.
And she just laughed. I'm like, "There isn't a mountain too high."
Yeah, it's like the only way you wouldn't follow her would be like if your insurance wouldn't pay for her anymore,
Exactly.
Which is unfortunately my situation.
Exactly. And I cannot recommend her more highly. Yeah. She just love her. And I walked in and I sat down and talked with her, and she's like, "All right, well, let's tackle this." She's like, "Let's get a game plan together." Mm-hmm. So I'm like, "Okay." So she's like, "How long?" And we were talking, and I said, I think, if I'm being completely honest, it was before Christmas. I think before Christmas is when I really started going down a depression slide. And it was all I could do to put my Christmas tree up, which is not like me at all.
Not at all, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm usually gangbusters. Like, you have to hold me back before I put my tree up.
Like, the second Thanksgiving dinner is done, you're like, let's put the tree up. Probably before that, honestly, but, yeah.
Yes, I abide by just the slimmest rules, such as no tree until after Christmas or after Thanksgiving. Hello. So, but yeah, it was just about everything I could do to put my tree up and my stockings, hang my stockings and stuff. Very little bit. And I've just been struggling with traditional, typical stuff. Yeah. And folks, because I vowed to always be 100% honest with you guys, I will tell you, I had even stopped brushing my teeth.
Wow.
Which I know is gross.
Well, and again, when things are affecting you negatively,
So it's kind of one of those dirty secrets that I hadn't really been telling anyone, of course, because who's going to announce that to the world?
Right. Well, I guess you really wouldn't have to.
Right. I'm sure it was a real surprise to some people.
Yeah. When you announce it, you'd be announcing it twice. Because they'd smell it and then hear it.
Exactly. Because I got to that point where it was too much effort to even brush my teeth.
I know exactly what that feels like. Yeah. I've done that too.
So, So it was, obviously something was wrong.
Yeah.
And, and I finally owned up to it completely and finally said, all right, it's enough.
Yeah.
Talked to my doctor. And I told her, and she's like, "Well, you need to see her, Dr. Yehor, who's my psychiatrist."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, about that." I have fallen into the not patient anymore category because it's been a little while since the last time I saw him. And she is married, actually, to my doctor. Dr. Rao is married to Dr. Yehor, my psychiatrist. Dr. Rao took one look at me. He's like, "Hold that thought. I'll be right back." Goes over to the nurse and says, "Make Genevieve a appointment with Dr. Yehor." And she's like, "Okay, well, the paperwork's on Dr. Yehor's desk." And she's like, "No, just go ahead and book an appointment with her. And if Dr. Yehor has any problems with it, just tell him Dr. Rao said it's okay."
Right. Which is funny because I don't remember if we talked about it in here, but I know when me and Henno were talking about this, I was like, I'll bet she takes care of this because that's the kind of person she is. Is that she'd be like, "Oh no, I can handle this. Let's hold on a second." Yeah. So I'm not at all surprised that she did that, which is again, why she's really good at her job,
Two things. As soon as I started talking with her about stuff, she looked at me and said, "No problem. We're going to get a game plan together. Yep. We're going to get this done." Mm-hmm. Which exactly what you want to hear from your doctor.
Yeah. It's why I said that was my biggest thing because she's the doctor that I had when I first went and sought help. And she could not have made me feel more comfortable with "you're not alone. This happens. We can deal with this. Let's get to work," kind of a thing. So, and then yelling at me for my blood pressure. But anyway.
She does have a tendency to lecture. My husband has gone to her.
She had the right to, though. Remember, I was at
Yes.
like potential stroke level blood pressure, so she had a right to yell at me.
Well, it is a well-known story my husband shares with a lot of different people, because I tell people how much I love my doctor. He's like, your doctor called me fat. I'm like, I know. And according to the charts,
Yeah.
we both are considered obese, people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It just is. And he's like, she called me fat. I'm like, well, but she wasn't mean. Like she's like, you're fat, or it's not. It was, she's doing her doctor duty.
Right. It's not like she paraded you around the place like, look at Fatty.
Exactly.
Which would be really funny,
she's
but
doing her doctor job.
Yeah.
But she, so she took care of that, and we talked about a variety of things, and so we're getting my head straight first. Then after that, we did the blood test, which everything came back good, which is awesome. Then the next step after that is we're going to start tackling my weight. So, because she really needs to get my weight down.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too.
Yeah. So, to the point that she actually mentioned very loosely, very much down the road, but she did mention the S word in surgery.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
As an option.
Well, because I know, because my nephew had surgery done, and he told me that basically, obviously, you have to have insurance that'll cover it, because it's got to be, the paperwork has to be done a certain way for them to cover it. Blah blah. But he said basically you just have to essentially be, was it 100 or 150 pounds over what's considered overweight, and that's I know I am. Yeah. So, yeah.
And I do, my insurance will cover it, but I don't know if it is the right choice for me at this time.
Sure.
And it's going to take some serious talking with a few different people. And
because it's a serious commitment. After watching Mike go through it, it is no joke. Like, anybody who thinks that's the easy way, it's not, because the diet is, after you have those is just brutal. You can't have very much of anything, and if you eat the wrong thing, you vomit, that kind of stuff, or if you eat a little too much, it was rough watching him adjust. After a couple weeks, he was much better, because he knew he got a better grasp of how much he could eat. So yeah, that's
so it's gonna be interesting. It's just another journey, and it would pretty much require me to give up an idea of a family.
Yeah.
Or at least an organic family.
Yeah.
So, so I would have to make that determination too.
Sure.
So there's just a lot going on with that decision, but we're just down the road.
Yeah,
and there's different options we can try before then.
I was going to say, like you said, that's an option. It doesn't mean you're going to do it. But like I say all the time on here, you got the estimate. She's like, well, here's what can be done, basically. So, yeah.
Exactly. And so the next thing I went to, my psychiatrist, went to Dr. Yehor, sat down, talked with him, and we got a game plan going for that. So now my current, cocktail of fun stuff. I'm going off of the Celexa. I was on Celexa. I'm going off of the Celexa, and I'm going on Wellbutrin and Abilify. And the Wellbutrin, we may have to adjust higher, because once I'm done with the Celexa, which Celexa and Wellbutrin are antidepressants. Right. Abilify is a mood stabilizer.
Yeah.
So once I'm done with the Celexa, he wants me off of that by the end of the month.
Okay.
Then he may have to up the Wellbutrin to cover up the antidepressant factor of that. Now,
really quick, and this doesn't mean it will happen to you. First of all, I want to put a caveat out there for anyone listening. Just because certain things work for Jen or me, don't think they're necessarily, what will work for you. A lot of, I've been through multiple medicines, Jen's been through multiple medicines, and even now we're still tinkering with stuff, trying to find the right mix. So again, go with your doctor and listen to him, and don't go off any medicine without doctor help with the weaning, because I did once and it was really stupid.
Yes.
Having
Very,
said all
very
of that,
careful.
the Wellbutrin, when I started on it, because of the antidepressant I was on at the same time, was what was causing me to be really jittery. So if you notice like trembling and stuff like that, make sure you tell.
Well, I've already I know that Wellbutrin, I've been on it before, and when I'm going on the Wellbutrin, some of the side effects I experience, I tap my foot. I can't keep my foot.
Yep.
Like when I'm sitting, I can't keep my foot from moving.
Right.
So I do that. I'll shake my foot a lot. I'll tap my foot a lot. I rub my feet together, almost like how some people rub their hands together.
Yeah.
I'll rub my feet together.
Yeah, you get a lot of nervous energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it kind of it goes.
I did too, but it was that plus the, you saw it. I showed you, my hands were like literally vibrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was,
so,
and since he lowered my antidepressant, I haven't had that. So it's, sometimes, cause he said that it can just be like too much serotonin basically. So like I said, just something to look out for. It doesn't mean it will happen, of course,
That's just, it is stuff that you have to just kind of play around with.
Yeah.
One of the more popular ones, I can't remember the name of it, but it was, is it Celexa?
That sounds
it
like
might be a sleeping one. I don't know. Anyways, one of the drugs they advertise a lot on TV for an antidepressant.
Yeah.
I went on that and I didn't even get the script filled. I did some samples.
Yeah.
And the samples made me nauseous. And I ate.
Yeah.
If I took it with on food, took it without food,
right.
Whatever I did, instant nausea.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, that obviously is not going to work for me.
And it's interesting because I've had was it one of the doctors that I had seen when he took me off of one and put me on another, he didn't mention that to me, that sometimes that can make all the difference in the medicine. Like feeling those effects essentially is taking it after food or before food kind of a thing. And also, most of them, they tell you to take it a certain, some they tell you to take in the morning, others they'll tell you to take before bed or something. But, that was interesting to me because I can't remember which one it was I was on, but every time I took it, I would just get like, it wasn't like cramps or anything, but I just felt like I was going to get sick at any point. Nothing sounded good, all that kind of like you were saying with that nausea. And, he was like, just, after you eat, take it. I did that and I never had a problem with it again,
Some things, it all depends upon kind of what works best for you and some of the side effects. Like the Abilify tends to make me sleepy.
Right.
So I have to take that before I go to bed.
Right.
It's not a good one for me to take in the morning.
I take mine before I go to bed too. The Wellbutrin I take when I get up. I take my Trintellix before I go to bed. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
And that's what I pretty much am going to be doing. The Wellbutrin, the good part about Wellbutrin is that it will take your impulse, the binge eating impulses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It'll affect those and it'll take those away or minimize those as much as possible. It doesn't necessarily take your appetite away,
right? But
it'll greatly decrease your appetite. So you just kind of have to watch to make sure you're eating 3 balanced meals, of course, every day. But so that will be good. And then the Citalopram, which is Celexa that I was on, actually was known to have the weight gain.
Yeah, a lot of them do. That's actually why Dr. Rao, when she put me on Effexor, because Effexor at the time was one of the ones that didn't encourage weight gain. But like I said, that wasn't the right drug for me. And Trintellix can cause weight gain. Since I've gone on it, I have, but I don't know that it's because of the medicine. I think it's more just because I'm lazy and I'm eating too many calories and stuff, So,
right. And it's a huge portion of it, by no means, is there a pill right now that will make you thin and fit? There isn't.
Nope.
There's things that can help encourage better behaviors to encourage you to get yourself healthy and fit.
Right.
But there's nothing that will completely cure, the fat drain or whatever it is.
Right.
But, so I talked to him and I set up a follow-up appointments, so that's good. I got my scripts filled, so I'm on the path
Good.
to getting myself back in order again.
Yeah.
So,
well, good.
now
And I'm glad that, what I said resonated with you, because I found that saying that to a lot of people has resonated with them. I've talked to people online where they're like, well, I don't think I need to see, anybody yet. And I'll talk to them and I'll be like, look, I thought I totally had this under control until it started getting pointed out to me how much I didn't have it under control. And, and again, control is that, control is a real problem, because when you think you have control is typically when you don't, like I didn't have control over what was going on. I was letting, what was going on in my head, steer my life. So, it's one of those tough things because no one ever wants to look at that, myself included. You know that you didn't want to look at it when you were first diagnosed either. We just don't want to as people because we feel as though that might be admitting that we're less than, and it isn't. It's just we're just wired differently. That's all.
Yeah.
And
And I think if anything to take away from this is the fact that, I do a mental health podcast, for gosh sakes.
Yeah.
I've been on this journey for years.
Mm-hmm.
Going on 7 years I've been on this journey, and I still fell off the wagon.
Yeah.
It's like,
exactly.
There is no permanent fix.
Yeah.
And you're going to have these ups and downs, and you're going to lose track of stuff. That's why it's so important that, I cannot emphasize enough, get yourself a very strong support system. Mm-hmm. I have Hannah and Brian, which I'm very fortunate for, and, and I love them to death for what who they are and what they bring to my life. My husband, my doctors, my family, people I work with. I am so blessed to be able to have such an amazing support system that will be honest with me and will point things out and will help me on my journey. Mm-hmm. And whether I make a wrong turn or not, they love me regardless. Yep. And they will help me put me back on the right path. And the path that I want to be on, maybe not the path they want me on, but the path I need to be on.
Right. Yeah. And exactly. And that's why I keep advocating like therapy, because that's exactly why I keep going back to therapy. Is because it may not be what I want to hear, it may not be what I want to do, but it is what I need to do, and such. So yeah, I get it. And you're right, I'm the same way. I'm very blessed to have basically all of what you said, it's the same thing. It's, and it is nice. And I understand how blessed I am in that regard, because I know there are people going through these fights on their own or very close to on their own, whether it's by their choosing or not, Yeah. I know there's a lot of people fighting these kind of things, without a large group of people who care and that check in on them. And, it is nice. It makes you feel really good when somebody checks in on you, Yeah. At least to me, I don't see it in any way as if someone messages me or something and says, hey, how you been? How's things going? Whatever. I know they're not doing it. For the most part, they're not doing it because it's like, oh, I better call Brian or he'll kill himself. You know what I mean? And I'm using an extreme on that, but you get what I'm saying. It's that's not why. It's they're checking because they care. And honestly, if they did the other, that would be because they care too. But
right. And it's just nice to know that, and if we can be there for you, let us know. Yep. If we can be part of your support system, that's what we're here for, is to support each other, but also to help support you and give you any help that we can give, Yep. Be it big, be it small, whatever it is. If we can be there for you, we're here to talk. You can always reach out to us.
Yep.
Our contact info. Have to listen past the break.
I was going to say, if not, we'll have it at the end of the show or in the show notes Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how are you, Brian? How's it going?
Okay. I'm better today than I was yesterday. Like I said, I had a brutal headache yesterday. I still have a pretty good one, but it's, as like there's some where I can't function. And then there's other, like that was yesterday. My head just killed me all day. And today is where I can I can do stuff, but it's still just is that like really it's in between a dull ache and a sharp pain that kind of comes and goes. So it's not fun, but I can at least, push through it and do some things. So hopefully, I don't know, the way, our weather in this area has been up and down, and it's going to be up again this week and then down again. So those are always brutal on my sinuses and migraines. So hopefully, well, there's all that rain coming through. Never mind. I was going to say, hopefully it won't be too bad. There's all that rain. That's almost a guaranteed headache. Yeah.
It's going to be bad.
Yeah. But anyway, other than that, not bad. I had to do the same thing you did. I had to go for, blood work and my yearly physical, earlier in the week. And, I got a bit of a lecture from my doctor because, I need to, he called me fat basically. So
You called me fat.
yeah, no, he really didn't, but he's, was basically really like, you really need to exercise. You really need to cut back on various stuff. And, I've been tracking my food with, the MyFitnessPal app. I've been tracking what I eat, and, I'm finding that I eat way more calories than I thought I did. I figured I was probably near-ish, maybe a little high. Like I figured instead of being like, she told me 2,000 to 2,300 is probably what I should shoot for. I figured I was close to like, maybe I was at like 2,700 or 3,000, somewhere at the most kind of a thing. There's days I'm tipping 4,000, like over 4. Yeah. And those are days when I'm eating fast food or eating out somewhere because that stuff is just terrible for you, even when I try to make better choices, you're still sabotaged because, a lot of things we'll think are healthy, but then if you eat the bread that they make, the bread's loaded with calories and salts and different stuff, sugars and, so, but yeah, I'm realizing, like, what's nice about that app too is it shows you the breakdown so you can see if you meet your goals for like carbs and, salts and, fiber, that kind of thing. And I can see that what's happening is I'm missing the good marks and I'm blowing past the bad ones. So, and that needs to reverse, my carbs need to come down, my fiber needs to go up, that kind of thing. So I've been trying to, be better about that kind of stuff, and it's not gone real well, but
it's work in progress.
Yeah.
Work in progress.
But anyway, I got a phone call from the doctor's office and they were like, please call us back. We need to talk to you about your blood work. And I'm like, cause that usually means medicine adjustment or I've got to come in and get a lecture, Yeah. And although the doctor I have now, the last time he had me come in and it was just to go over my blood work. And it was basically to tell me that things were going well and, just talk with, but it was also because I hadn't been in a while. So I needed to go in for prescriptions anyway, so, and I was like, well, and I was like, no, I was just in there. So, but anyway, what they called for was, basically was like, make sure you're getting exercise, cut back on the carbs, as basically the same thing he told me when I was in his office. And other than that, I guess the numbers they may not be great, but they're acceptable, which acceptable is okay for right now. Cause at one point I was not acceptable. So to get the numbers into acceptable is good. And now the next step is to get, to move down from that. Yeah. But it was funny because it took me 2 days to call him back. One day I just was like, just nervous about calling. And again, as we've talked before, it's funny because all I got to do is call and that'd be dealt with. Nothing to worry about. No problems from that point on. And, instead I put it off 2 days and worry for 2 days about, cause I didn't want to hear, well, we're going to have to up your medicine or I'm going to have to put you on another this or that, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't so much win at the, thinking positive on that, on that one. So,
right.
But that's been going on and, I've been feeling I talked about this with Heno a little bit, and I talked about it on Salty Language too, that I've just been feeling overwhelmed. And I was saying it more in the context of, because it felt like I was always doing something for the podcast kind of a thing. And it just kind of feels overwhelming, which it does. It just will sometimes, because it is,
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some days where the littlest thing, like you said, brushing your teeth seems overwhelming, So you never know if it's how you actually feel sometimes, or if it's kind of, depression ramping it up.
Mm-hmm.
But just overall, I'm just feeling overwhelmed, and I don't know, nothing's really changed. That's the weird part, and the only thing I can think of is I'm probably putting more pressure on myself. I'm probably beating myself up more than I had been recently, and that's probably why I'm feeling overwhelmed, because I'm putting huge weights on my shoulders that no one else is, or no one else expects. But I decided I'm going to carry the weight of the world.
Right.
Even though everybody else is, also carrying the weight. I feel like it's just more than normal. I've got an appointment with my psychiatrist this week, I think. So I'm going to talk to him about that, of course, because that's something that has changed. But other than that, I haven't really done a lot, because for a while there, our weather was just garbage, and,
It's true.
And, so I'm low energy on those days, and who wants to go out in that?
Right. The way where we live does, especially this time of year, does not make for a fun place to be outdoors.
Yeah, exactly. Which sucks, because, I need to get, I need to be outside or near a window. I need it to be sunny so that I can get more, vitamin D, because I'm still very low on that, even though I'm taking a supplement. And, the best way to get it is to be around sunlight. And I can't, because we keep not having sunny days. Although he did tell me that even if it's not sunny, still being outside and stuff, you're still gonna get some of that, it's just not as much, So, and it's like, yeah, but, it's also been cold, so I don't really want to spend much time outside.
Right.
We've got some days coming up where it's gonna be like 60. I plan to be outside on those days, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. Overall, it's, I've been just pretty much the same, but at the same time, like you were saying, you had some concerns that you went and talked about, and that's kind of where I'm at, is that this feeling of overwhelming, although realistically it would be better if I talked to my therapist about it than the psychiatrist probably, but, actually I'll talk to both of them about it. So, yeah, I don't know, I don't know. I've been trying to meditate more to see if that would help, and it's not really doing it. Like, nothing seems to really be, feeling like a relief to it. Like, playing video games or watching something funny just doesn't seem to give me that outlet that I was getting before. So, like I said, that's, when I start feeling that way, to me, that's a red flag. It's like, okay, you need to, something's not right. And whether it's the medicine or my behavior, something's got to change in here to fix this. So, yeah,
Absolutely. It is very easy to get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It just is.
Well, and especially with this kind of thing, because again, as you said, there's days I wake up and just the thought of any of it, just getting out of bed, just, as I've said before, when somebody asked me what depression felt like, and I said, picture, waking up with a 300-pound person sitting on you. And the first thing you have to do is get them off of you before you start your day. And they're not they're not going to help you, like, it's just like a big rock on your chest that you have to somehow move. And
everything that you do, you have them hanging off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like, you can move them, they cling to you, you just can't shake it.
Yeah.
They're with you forever.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong,
shake it.
there are some days where I, once I do get out of bed and I move around a little bit, it's, I can deal. But there's a lot of days where it's basically, if I didn't have to eat, I wouldn't get out of bed, or use the bathroom. I just wouldn't bother. It's just, you know, and I don't like that, but I know I'm going to have those days. You know, those are going to exist. No matter what, those will happen because no medicine is going to take that, you know, fix that problem. You know, that's always going to be there essentially. So the goal is to just make them less and less. Yeah.
Right.
Like my therapist said, good, you know, bad days are okay. Bad weeks are not, you know, like that's when we're concerned, you know, but if you have a bad day, sometimes just let yourself have it, you know?
Yeah.
And just kind of not do much and let yourself be sad and depressed or whatever. And then the next day try to fight it, you know, so that it doesn't become a spiral.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so I think that's about it for me that I can think of.
Well, I know something I want to talk about today, and we kind of touched on it in a variety of different ways over the years, but I don't know if we ever addressed it completely fully. If we have, or if it was a repeat, sorry guys, I think it's important. It's how you measure your self-worth. You know, there's buying guides out there for cars, for houses, for, you know, just about anything, any collectibles. There's all these guides out there, and they talk about, you know, the physical appearance, how it runs, you know, what, all the trademarks on it, what makes it unique, what makes it original.
Yeah.
And they assign a value to it. Well, we do that to ourselves. Obviously, you know, we have our self-esteem and self-worth. Self-esteem is a little different than self-worth. Self-esteem is how you, I'm trying to think, because they're close, but like self-esteem is more along the lines of how you feel about who you are as a person for yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, like my self-esteem is pretty high because I like who I am as a person.
Right.
My self-worth is pretty low because I don't value who I am as a person like I should.
Right.
The value that I see in who I am is what I do for others. You know, so if I spend the day doing nothing but watching TV, then that is a worthless day. I had no worth whatsoever.
Right.
And that isn't true.
Right.
And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is that if I sat on my butt and did absolutely nothing and watched TV all day and that's it, I'm still worthy of being alive. I'm still have self-worth, and I need to accept that people can love me and can value me, not for what I do for them, but value me for just existing,
right? For
being me. Yep. Really hard concept for a lot of us to accept.
It is very hard, yeah.
Because we measure ourselves so often by our appearance, our net worth, the money that we have, the house that we have, the car that we drive, the kids that we have, you know, our things and our objects, and, you know, or we measure ourselves by what we do. You know, I volunteer all the time, so I have a higher worth than you because you don't volunteer at all.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that it's not true. It just isn't true. But these are the lies that we tell ourselves. This is what we use to measure ourselves and our value.
Yeah.
You know, there is no buyer's guide out there that says Jen is worth 1996 Jen is worth $10,000, but a 2018 Jen is only worth $2,000 for, you know, there is no buyer's guide out there that does that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's silly.
Right.
But why do we do it to ourselves? You know?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you know, Jen back in high school, she was skinnier, she was cuter, she had, you know, more things going on. So obviously that's a more valuable Jen than the current Jen. No, not at all.
Right. Yeah.
You know, absolutely not at all. Not true whatsoever.
Yep.
So
you're right though, because
you have an article, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. You're right though. It is funny how, You know, when a lot of us measure ourselves, because I did this for a long time, I measured myself on, basically, I didn't feel like I was a success unless I was able to accumulate things, like stuff, you know?
Yes.
And by things and stuff, I don't mean, you know, good friends, love. I mean, you know, just things, you know, I want a computer. I want this. I want the video game systems. I want, you know, and if I couldn't hit those things, it would really bother me, you know, cause for a long time, it was basically like, the way I was if there was something I wanted that was reasonably priced, I don't mean something that was like $300,000 or something, but if there was something, say under $50 and I wanted it and I couldn't get it, it would make me feel like I was not succeeding, you know, which is just not the case. It's just, you just don't make the money to buy everything you want sometimes. sometimes you just want way more than you can have, you know? But, you know, so it's funny though, because if you ask other people, hey, what do you like about me? Or what is it why are we friends kind of a thing? Most of them aren't going to say, 'cause you have the new Xbox.
You always come over and help me with my laundry. No, they're not going to say that stuff.
Exactly. That's what I mean. So that accumulation of stuff doesn't really impress a lot of people, 'cause they also have that stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, cool. You know, they're not like, oh man, you got the new, you know, that does happen, but you know, a lot of times it's just like, oh yeah, okay, you know, 'cause we all have it, or a lot of us have it. So, you know, putting too much value in that stuff as far as your own value goes it's a really bad place. You know? I mean, 'cause I haven't worked in a long time. I haven't really had any sort of steady stream of income. And I'm realizing during that time just how little the stuff means, you know, because I've had to basically look at a lot of it and go, I can't afford it. You know, I can't. I don't have the money. And that's just the end of it. You know, and honestly now it's more that I look at things and go, oh, well, the reason I can't have this and this is partially because of my depression. You know, like that's kept me from things and whatever. So like I said, just don't put too much value in the stuff you accumulate. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's something about, you know, the idea of having your own place, you know, car, whatever, you know, those kind of things I can understand, you know, but, yeah. Yeah. If you think stuff is the answer, you should spend some time not making a lot of money, because you realize real fast how much that stuff does not make a difference.
Absolutely.
Although, you know, Eric Clapton does have a, you know, Nobody Loves You When You're Down and Out song.
True.
True. Yeah, this article's from Psychology Today, and I'm just going to kind of pick and choose parts from it. If you want to read the whole thing, it'll be in the show notes, or the link will be. Says people who are prone to depression tend to base their self-worth on the opinions of others. Consider these comments from several patients who struggled with depression and low self-esteem. Let's see if we identify with any of these. A 19-year-old male student. I can only feel good about myself if my girlfriend smiles at me. Makes sense. That's one. I know a lot of people, you know, it's like pleasing others makes you feel worthwhile. A 26-year-old male electrician. I like myself when my boss tells me I did a good job. That's, you know. I feel good about, 32-year-old female teacher. I feel good about myself when my students don't act up in class. 22-year-old female graduate student. Only when I get an A in school do I feel okay. Even then it's short-lived. Well, that makes sense, because that's like getting a fix. You know, getting that quick adulation for doing well, and then there's more homework or there's another test, so you have to, you know, that makes sense. A 21-year-old female hairstylist. When do I feel good about myself? I guess when my boyfriend says I'm pretty. 23-year-old male carpenter's apprentice. When my girlfriend turns away or doesn't reach for my hand, the world seems cold. I feel lost and empty inside, as if no one will ever want me or love me. I have this wrenching need to be approved by everyone. Everyone's opinion counts, except, of course, mine. 48-year-old male factory worker. I was always letting others abuse me. At work, my boss knew that I would take every abuse without complaint. I didn't feel I deserved any better. I guess that's just the way it is. Yeah. I was very guilty of that one for a long time.
Oh, me too.
Yep. And that one's a really common one. A lot of people fall into that because we were taught by people who went to work every day. They don't skip work. You go in, you do your job, you shut your mouth, and you go home, basically. And that's good and bad. You know, you still gotta not let people walk all over you.
And the stuff that we've talked about before, such as you have a choice and you can say no.
Yeah.
And, you need to decide the value of things, not let other people decide the value.
Yeah.
Like for me, this weekend, they needed my help at work, but my family needed me. And I told them that.
Yep.
They had no problems with it.
Yeah.
I stressed about it in my head, making the decision. But as soon as I told them, like, I have family commitments I have to keep.
Yeah.
They're, oh, okay.
Yeah. Because in your head, you feel like you let them down. Right?
Yep. But in their head, they're like, yeah, what up?
Like, hey, that happens. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, not every week that she can't help out. It just happens to be this bad week.
Yep.
Okay.
But it's a perfect example of showing distorted thinking because, you know, you're mind reading them and they're actually telling you that's okay. And you're still like, probably like, oh, they're just telling me that. Like, they're probably talking about me when I'm not here, you know, like there's just all those dumb things go through your head. And, you know, that's the kind of course of thinking that, you know, when I've talked about the distorted thinking worksheets and stuff, that's what they're for, is so you can catch that behavior and go, wait a minute, you know, and even though it's hard to, you know, try to turn it the other way.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I'll see certain things like, there's a woman I work with that I'm good friends with, and we work different shifts. She works afternoons and I'm working nights right now. And the night people, she used to work nights, and her and the night people have had some, you know, work conflicts.
Yeah.
And she's told me a lot about them. And I mentioned, you know, we were talking and I just mentioned in passing, I'm like, yeah, you know, they're not the biggest fans of you either.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, what did they say? I'm like, whoa, back it up.
Yeah.
It's like, you told me that you're not big fans of them. And they're saying that they're not big fans of you. A, should not be a surprise.
Right.
And she's like, well, I guess it's not. I said, and B, if you're not a big fan of them, why do you care what they say about you?
Also that, yeah.
You know, and their opinion of you. Because obviously you don't have a high opinion of them. So their opinion about you means nothing.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I guess you're right. Like, yeah. If you take a look at stuff, you know, your self-worth is not based upon them liking you.
Right.
Your self-worth is based upon you liking you.
That's why it's called self-worth.
Yeah. It's your basis.
Yeah.
And how they feel about you doesn't really matter. You know, and the people who love you and that you love, that matters more.
Right.
But not as much as you loving you.
Right. Like realistically, your scenario, if the people you work with were disappointed because you didn't stay, or if you went into work, then you couldn't make those family commitments, they would be disappointed because you couldn't do those things. Which one in the end of the day matters more to you? And you obviously said it's the family part of it. You know, even though it's not necessarily that you're doing it because they would feel that way, it's just the idea that, you know, if the things were even, you know, to where both sides were going to talk bad about you, you would care about what your family has to say a little more than what your coworkers say, because in a week they may not be your coworkers anymore, you know.
Correct.
The other's still going to be your family probably, so, you know.
Not to mention, I fear my grandmother haunting me.
Right.
I fear that she will come down from the heavens and will whop me upside the head if I don't take care of my family.
Makes sense. This says, by relying on others to support our self-worth, we treat our self-esteem like a volleyball that's batted from one side of the net to the other, depending on the whims of others. We need to own our self-esteem in order to develop a sense of inner worth that is not dependent on other people's appraisals of us. Placing your self-esteem squarely in your own hands involves learning to accept yourself regardless of whether or not you meet other people's expectations. It means valuing yourself by setting your own goals and standards and treating yourself fairly if sometimes you fall short. Also, it makes it hard for people to manipulate you. Because if you put your self-esteem in their hands, they can basically blow smoke up your butt to get more out of you. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes time for you to say want a raise or whatever, they can kind of talk down to you. As though you're not, well, you did do this and well, those kind of things to try to maybe not give you a raise or a promotion or whatever. And I can speak firsthand on this one. So,
Yep.
And,
me too.
And it is a very, as I've said before on here, it's your hand, that is so much of handing your power to somebody else. If somebody else wields the power to determine how you feel about yourself, there's not much more power you can give somebody, whether you feel worthless or useful or, successful or whatever. So it's why it's so important to establish a certain level of this. It's kind of like the idea of making sure that you can survive on your own. Don't depend on another person for your survival, kind of a thing,
Yeah. Exactly. In the whole volleyball thing, it just rings so true.
Yeah.
Because in a given day, especially with me, with my bipolar, I have a tendency to go up and down quite frequently.
Sure.
And I just harken back to quite a few different times in my life. I can remember starting the day off elated, running into somebody, they say something to me that deflates me. Then I run into somebody else and they say something that inflates me. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, wee, woo, wah, woo, yeah. I'm all over the place.
Yep.
And when I'm feeling good about myself, when I'm feeling centered and my self-worth is up, my self-esteem is up, I don't feel that.
Yeah.
It's like I still feel happy, obviously, when I get praised. And I still feel, a little disappointed, obviously, if someone says something negative.
Right.
But is not nearly the roller coaster.
Right.
That it traditionally would be for me.
Right. It doesn't become, again, another distorted thinking, thing was catastrophizing. And that's, making everything seem like it's, the biggest deal in the world kind of a thing. And that's, it's a little of that to where you really are, that inflation deflation cycle is just, it's so fatiguing,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I could just going through it for a few hours and you could be done for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Don't want to talk to anybody, don't want to see anybody, just be huddled up in a corner. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's incredibly exhausting and just mentally and physically just awful.
Yeah.
It's just awful. Don't do it yourself, folks.
Right.
It's not worth it.
Yeah. This says, they gave an example about somebody here. I'm going to skip that, but this part I thought was interesting. It says in therapy, Rita examined the have-tos and the can't-dos in her thinking and how they limited her willingness to make changes in her life. The list that they have here is, I have to be perfect or he'll leave. I have to be quiet or he'll leave. I have to walk on eggshells or he'll leave. I can't be angry with him or he'll leave. I have to do things his way or he'll leave. I can't survive without him, so I better not make waves. I can't cope on my own, so I better just accept things the way they are. Which is no good, obviously, because, like my therapist, when we kind of did a little of this, that's where she walked me through. Cause it was like I have to be perfect or they'll leave, and she'll go, okay, well, what if they leave?
Mm-hmm.
Like walk down that road and realize that realistically you will be okay. May not be right away, might go through a really rough patch for a while or something, but eventually you essentially will be okay. You can recover from these kind of things. It's not, it's not like, okay, I'm going to leave you and then you automatically lose a leg or something. It's, it just hurts for a while and then you'll be fine. But it's understandable when you put your self-esteem in somebody else's hands, why that stuff would matter, because these are the kind of scenarios that lead to kind of like mental abuse. Because like that, I have to be perfect or he'll leave. You could change or he'll leave too, or he'll hit me. You know what I mean? Like those kind of things. Or even just if you don't bring any physical violence to it, just I have to be perfect or he'll leave, and to where he's been telling her no one else will want you. And I shouldn't just say her. This could go either way, but it's like nobody else would want you. I'm the only one who thinks you're good, whatever and stuff. So.
And I've also seen it in circumstances where the partner doesn't feel anything of that at all. And it's completely in the other person's head.
Yep.
They make up these rules for themselves, and they see their value attached to this person.
Right, because maybe it happened in the past or something like that. You know? Yeah.
So, in your circumstance you're talking about, the guy may love her for who she is.
Yeah.
Doesn't care, if she's not perfect, if she can't do anything exactly the way she wants to do it, whatever.
Yeah.
He just loves her for who she is.
Yeah.
But in her mind, she has made it up that he is going to leave. Yeah. And I think a lot of men struggle with this. And I'll even tell women who without mental illness still go through a lot of this stuff.
Sure. Through
PMS, hormone changes, and things like that. You want to know why, men, you're out there getting yelled at for stuff you didn't do, you didn't think, you didn't say? That's because we get in our own heads and we start assigning our worth based upon who we're with.
Yeah. And that's like, the thing is, it's like when you're in those situations, it's like you both chose each other,
Yes.
And that's why it bugs me when I hear someone say that someone's out of their league or whatever. And don't get me wrong. I'm going to point out my own hypocrisy, because as I've pointed out before, even when I'm on Tinder and the other person may not even see that I liked them, I will still go, they won't, and I swipe left. I will do that to myself rather than going, I think they're interesting, swipe right every time. Right. I don't. I still catch myself doing that occasionally, to where I'll essentially be like, they're out of my league kind of a concept. And, but there isn't a league. We all know somebody that you're like, how did you land them? Like you're an idiot. How did you land somebody that good? And, and I'm not meaning that in a like bullying kind of way or anything, but sometimes it really does, how there's always been the joke of, oh, you married up kind of a thing, and good thing, or back in the day, it would have been good thing you knocked her up, because, now she's got to marry you, but.
And we went through, when I met my husband, I had a pretty good self-esteem and self-worth. And I'm about halfway there. I'm still working on it. Mm-hmm. I had a rough patch, obviously. We've talked about that. But when we first met, one of the things that we were talking about, we were on a double date. And we were bantering back and forth. My husband and I were just dating at that point, and we're teasing each other. And he's like, well, if you're going to be that way, I'm just going to get in my apartment near work, and I'll just stay there. I said, no problem. I said, you're more than welcome to go get an apartment and stay there. Mm-hmm. But just know that I may not be at home the next time you come to visit.
Yeah.
Because, and he's like, really? I'm like, yep. I said, you have choices. I also have choices.
Right.
Yep. And that is why part of the vows, because we wrote our own vows, and part of my vows is I choose you to be my partner. And that word chose and choose, it's so important that we always remember that. Like you said, that partner chose you, you chose that partner. Mm-hmm. It was a mutually agreed upon contract you made between the two of each other. Yep. So you were equals at that point.
Yep. And look, and that can change. The choosing people at some point, you could say this isn't the person for me anymore.
I don't want to choose to be in this again.
Right. And that's fine, But it's just, like you were saying, that's so important to basically let the other person know, like, first of all, that this kind of manipulation is not going to work, you know, and I know he was kidding with you, but you know,
right. Yeah. In my scenario, he was joking,
but that's
in real scenarios may not be.
Right. If somebody was I mean, you know me well enough to know, if someone was constantly like, well, I'm going to leave if you don't, whatever, at some point I'm going to go hold the door for him because there's only so much that I'm going to take, you know? You know, if they're not joking, just be like, look, I'm not going to let you keep doing this. And I don't deal well with ultimatums, you know? So it's like, at some point I'll be like, here, let me help you. And, you know, so there's that. And it's just a situation where, whether it's work or a relationship or whatever, it's just better if you can go into it knowing that you bring something to the table. Like a great example is you. When you go look for another job, you are really good about valuing yourself, like your skill set. You know, you don't go in and undersell yourself. You say, look, I can do a lot of things. I know I'm valuable to you, not in an egotistical way, but, you know, the way you'll carry yourself, I'm sure, is that because you've told me what you've said to people. And it's like, that's great. You know, a lot of people wouldn't do that because they've been, oh, well, the job market's not good. So you got to kind of kiss up. And it's like you walk in and you're kind of like, look, I want this job, but I'm also not going to compromise who I am, kind of a thing, you know, and I feel I deserve a certain amount of money. You know, if you feel you're worth 50 grand a year and they come in at 25, then it's like, well, this isn't the place for me unless you desperately need the money.
And the internet is fabulous for helping you folks. Like if you're in a position where you're going out and interviewing, go check out Glassdoor. There's a couple other ones out there that will give you average salaries for a given job title in a given area. You know, take a look at that stuff.
Or if not, just type in on Google, you know, average salary for whatever the job title is, you know?
Exactly. And read up on companies and people's reviews on companies and stuff. You owe it to yourself to investigate them just as much as they owe it to themselves to investigate you.
Yeah.
You know, and finding that balance, because don't undersell yourself because you're pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I lose sight of that a lot. And
I do too.
You're right. You know, I need to make sure that that's more of an in my face thing.
Right. Because realistically, the question would be, much like I've said in the past, it's like, I look at myself in the mirror and I don't like seeing the weight that I am, you know? Yeah. But why won't I do something about it? You know, it's like, you can fix this. And it's kind of like with you, it's like I said, you go into interviews and, you know, your head's held high, you're, you know, walking in, like I said, confident, knowing exactly what your worth is, but then somewhere else, you question yourself, you know, and it's like, well, why don't we carry that? And don't get me wrong, I know it's because of various things, but it's like, why don't we carry that confidence across the board? Like me, when it would come to, like, I don't have the self-confidence to walk up to somebody and just start talking to them, like, you know, to try to ask them out. That is not in me at the moment. But I know what I bring to the table. I know that, you know, I know I'm a good person. I know I'm not horrible. You know, like there's things I know about myself. I know there's value to me, but at the same time, if it was in that environment, all of a sudden she'll never, all of a sudden I'm not good enough. You know, just that quickly, boom, you're nothing, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I've been working on for a while.
It's a lifelong struggle. I think most people have.
My self-confidence has eroded so much over the years that it's going to take a long time for me or something drastic to happen for me to be able to get over it, which really stinks because it's going to hold me back for a long time probably. And, you know, there's not much I can do except trying to work through it.
No future telling. You don't know.
No, I don't, but I also know I've been working on it a long time.
Maybe you're close to getting it solved. You never know.
Yeah, sure.
I understand.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you can just feel that it's going to be a work in progress for a while.
This article says after those things, like her therapist told her to write down those things like that, and she said that he asked her at one point to consider what evidence she had that her husband would leave at the slightest sign of assertiveness on her part. And that's a great point. If you are sitting down going, well, they'll leave, they'll do this, they'll do that, then also take a minute and go, what proof do I have? Because if not, distorted thinking. If you have some proof or something that at least can lead you down, and I'm not talking grasping at straws or using confirmation bias kind of a situation, to where you look for something to verify you. I'm talking like you look at, like he's directly said it or acted in such a way, that kind of thing. So, and if it's not there, then maybe it's more you than them kind of a thing, and
I had a complete breakdown before I got married, and it was like 2 hours, just bawling my eyes out. Could not understand why anyone would want to marry me, let alone my husband. It did not compute. I could not understand it. It made no sense. And I felt so awful. And my best friend talked me through it, and we worked it through, and I finally came to that conclusion that it's nothing he could possibly have said. It was absolutely all me. There's a reason he asked me to be his wife.
Right. Yeah. And, there's a reason he's standing there.
Yeah, exactly. There is a reason why he's marrying me.
Right.
And it is not up to me to make his decision whether I'm good enough or not for him. It is up to me to be the best person I can be and feel comfortable in my self-worth.
Yeah.
He needs to make the decision if I'm the right person for him.
Right.
And I have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And when I came to, right after that breakdown, I wrote my vows. And I was laying in bed and I grabbed my phone and I just typed some stuff out, and I made a few changes and tweaks as we went, but for the most part they stayed just about the same as when I wrote them right after I flipped out.
Yeah.
And I told my husband about it later, and he's like, "You got cold feet?" I'm like, "Not for me. I got cold feet for you."
Right.
I said, "If that makes any sense."
Just picture you knocking on his door, be like, "Are you sure you want to do that?"
And that's really what it was.
Yeah. It really
Honestly,
is.
That's what I did say that to him right after he asked me to marry him.
Yeah.
I accepted, of course, and after everything settled down a little bit, we were sitting outside by a bonfire. I was looking at the ring, and I'm like, "You sure you want to?" He's like, "I can take it back." I'm like, "No, I'm good."
Right. See, there you go. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, "No, I'm good. I'll keep it."
Yeah.
But it is so tough because you bounce back and forth in that stuff.
Well, this
it was.
This mentions on here after questioning the what proof do I have kind of thing. She said that she started to ask other questions as well, like what evidence is there I couldn't cope on my own? Haven't I made my way for a way for myself in this world? Don't I have skills I can use to take care of myself? She was asked to weigh the value of maintaining a marriage so out of balance with her needs, the risks incurred in starting over again. What cost must I bear to maintain the status quo in this relationship? How fragile is the relationship that it could not sustain any changes? And these are great questions because, really the scenario they're given here is not really a partnership.
Right.
It's really not. Or if it is, it's, a drastic, it's more like a 90-10 or a, something kind of situation. But it says here that after that, she decided not to cooperate in any plans in which she did not actively participate in the decision-making process, and told her husband he was free to do whatever he liked and that she would do likewise if he objected. And says she was surprised at the outcome. Not only did her husband... Wait a minute. Oh, not only didn't her husband object, but her unexpected assertiveness appeared to put him on the defensive. He apologized for his demandingness and agreed to discuss their weekend plans together. The guy who wrote this asked Rita whether she was fearful the experiment may backfire. I realized, she said, if he were to leave me over something like this, there'd be no point in going on with the relationship. Right. It really is. It's like if you go to somebody and go, hey, I feel like my points and my opinions are valid and I should share in the decision-making process, and they go, get back in the kitchen, basically, that tells you all you need right there. Or if they just basically ignore you or move on, then that tells you they really don't value you, So that's where valuing yourself is so important, because at that point you can be like, well, I don't need this, and peace out,
Exactly.
So.
And these decisions aren't easy, and, by no means are we making light about, just walking away from a relationship or walking away from anybody. Mm-hmm. But, not at all. But, it is very important that you value yourself more than anything else, because that'll give you the self-esteem, the self-worth to be able to make the decisions that are best for you.
Exactly. And it's not as though, it's not that you're making that decision only because it's how you feel. You're looking at the overall situation. Like if you say, hey, I need my feelings and opinions, not to be minimized, and the other person minimizes you at that point, it's like, well, that tells you, like I said, that tells you all you need to know, really, for the most part. And it's like, well, now it bounces back to you. Do I want to stay in this situation? Do I, like those kind of things. And those are different questions to ask. But I think you won't put yourself in that scenario if you don't have the confidence to say, hey, I've got value.
Right.
Exactly. See? Odie knows.
There you go.
This, excuse me, this doctor says, that, what is it? If you're interested in designing mini experiments in your own life, the following guidelines may be helpful. And he's got, 4 here, I think. Identify a particular nagging thought or undesirable behavior you'd like to change. Be specific. Instead of saying to yourself, I want to be a better person, or I want to be a stronger person, set specific goals for yourself. I will talk to a college advisor during the week concerning my career plans. I will go to my friend's party and plan to approach 3 new people. Oh, man. Just reading that made me anxious. The last one. The college advisor doesn't make me as nervous as the party one. What's funny is I absolutely could do that. I know it.
Absolutely.
I know that when if I walk up to people, I generally can engage in conversation without a problem, if for no other reason because of the retail work I've done that, you put the smile on and you go fake it,
Yep.
So I know I can do that, but it's just, again, the idea of it's like,
Right.
The next one's dispute negative or irrational beliefs that put the brakes on making any changes in your life. Write down any negative beliefs and challenge them by constructing rational countering statements. For example, you might think, what's the sense in trying? You're only going to fail in the end. Boy, did I write this? Challenge this belief by saying to yourself something like, no one has a crystal ball that can accurately forecast the future. You may not succeed in every attempt, or every second or third attempt, but your goals will surely exceed your reach if you live your life on the sidelines and never make the effort to pursue them. Which is true. That's the old, you can't miss, or you miss 100% of the shots you don't take,
Yeah.
And as somebody who stood on the sidelines, which is, I think, almost how I described how I feel to my therapist, because I made a comment that I feel like I was standing on the sidelines while everybody else was moving past me, basically. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. The next one is apply the so what test to your beliefs. Ask yourself, so what's the worst that can happen if I do such and such? Which is what I was talking about earlier. My therapist did this for me, and I've mentioned it to other people, and this one has really helped a few people, including myself, because it really does make you realize that, oh, okay, I'll be fine.
Right.
It says reject the tendency to exaggerate potential negative consequences. Keep things in perspective. Follow up with the roof will cave in test. Look up at the ceiling. If the roof is still there, congratulate yourself. If not, seek more secure housing. And it's true. That really is. Like before we went to Chicago, you know, and like not before, but while I was in Chicago, you know, they had a Van Gogh exhibit and I really wanted to go because Van Gogh's my favorite painter. We've talked about this on here before. I was talking with Henno about it, and then I started reading on Twitter that there were huge lines for it and tons of people there. And all of a sudden, my anxiety just went through the roof. And I was just like, you know, like, I don't know if I can do this and blah, blah, blah. And Henno was just like, you're going to hate yourself if you don't, you know, cause this is a potentially once in a lifetime shot, you know, to see these paintings together, to really experience this. And, you know, the next day I went through it and made it through fine. And then when I was telling my therapist, she was doing that. She's like, that's why we did the so what mentality, you know, is so you know, okay, well, if you get there and there's tons of people, then what? You leave, or you walk into another room, which is exactly what happened, you know? And again, luckily because of Henno's aggressiveness, I didn't feel as overwhelmed in there as I could have because we were right at the front. Had we been standing 4 or 5 people deep or kind of in the crowd, I would have felt way more overwhelmed. But once we got into the one spot, Henno went right up to it and I was like, all right, just walked up with him. So, you know.
There you go.
But that was it. When I started feeling overwhelmed, we got out of the room, you know. And when we both kind of felt overwhelmed, just as, cause we had just taken in so much at the museum, we left, you know? So it was, and that's the thing, walking out of there, it was like, it was great. I know I can deal with those things now, you know?
Yeah.
I can be in a room with 1,000 people or whatever and be okay. Like, it's not going to be comfortable, but I'm okay. And I can tell myself that knowing I'm okay, you know? Is there any immediate harm? No. Look around. No. You'll be okay, kind of a thing. And that was really key for me. And it still is. There's still scenarios where I'll get into, and I still have moments like that to where I do that. Look around. Am I in immediate danger? No. I'm okay then. And where I'm applying this the most and trying is in a car. Because I tend to look for, basically I'm looking for the next car accident. I'm always, you know, my head's on a swivel. I'm looking different ways. I'm paranoid somebody's going to run a light or pull out of a driveway or whatever. And I'm trying to get better at that, you know.
Absolutely.
Because that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And the last one here says, experiment with making small changes in behavior. Evaluate the results. As you gain confidence in making changes, increase the scope of your experiments to incorporate more significant changes. I remember watching the show. I can't remember what show it was. But you know what? It was, what was it called? It was a show with Steve-O in it from Jackass, but it was called like Dr. Steve-O or something like that. And basically,
yeah, would he help the people face their fears?
Yes. And there was one of them where the guy could not talk to women, or a few guys were so nervous about talking to women, and he made them stand in a mall, I think it was, and read poetry to the women, like with a sign that says basically like, you know, come up and like for free kind of a thing. I think he had to approach the women and ask. And, you know, it was like, it's funny because that's the kind of thing that will get you over those kind of things. But at the same time, it's like, that was a big step, you know, like, yeah, that's not just talking to a couple people. That was, you know, really throwing you into it, kind of throwing you into the deep end. But by the end of it, the guys were talking much better to women. So it worked, you know, cause they got that self-confidence of talking to women. And, you know, I thought it was a really interesting way of doing things, but there is a line, you know, some people you can't do that or it won't work, you know. Some people will figure out how to swim when you throw them in the deep end. Some will drown.
Yeah.
You know?
You have to make sure it's the right person.
Yeah. And, when it comes to other stuff. Like me, I couldn't just right now get in a car and drive across the city or get on the highway. I'd be mortified, Could I get in a vehicle and drive around the block? Yeah, I could probably work my way to that, like start there and then just, okay, I did this. Now I can do this. And same with, this other stuff, like at work, maybe don't say no all the time, but maybe just start occasionally saying no. Like if they want you to work every weekend, once in a while, just say, hey, I got something this weekend, just make those little changes because that'll change expectations of you also. And as you do those things, people won't see you as a doormat and they'll go find a different doormat. Really.
Absolutely. So, well, I don't know, Brian. I think we're pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too.
All right. Awesome. Well, folks, if you want to continue the conversation with us, you know where we're at. You can reach me on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. You can also reach us via email at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. You can also reach us at our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. So how about you, Brian?
Did you mention Henno?
Not yet, no.
Oh, okay.
Go for it.
You can find Henno on Twitter at Ida Henno. So, and you can find me at Stunami. Before I get into the rest of it, real quick, like Jen mentioned earlier, if you just need someone to kind of talk to at any point, we're all on Twitter. So, send us, shout out at us or something like that. And, we can talk. I've done it with, I don't know how many people already now. So, I'm kind of getting old hat at people asking me stuff, which is weird. So as long as you understand, as I'll say in a little bit, we're not doctors, therapists, or trained professionals. This is not therapy. If you feel you need help, go get help, all that stuff. You can find my other podcast at salty_language on Twitter or at saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work. What am I forgetting? Oh, you can find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/crazylifepodcast. And, you can also find the show on Twitter at The Crazy Life Pod, where I post when the new episodes go up. We're part of the Tangibound Network, which can be found at tangiboundnetwork.com. If you're using Apple Podcasts, formerly iTunes, please rate, review, and subscribe, if you haven't already. And if you're using Stitcher or Spotify or, other, ways of listening to us, please use the like or share buttons. That helps us get, more hits and visibility and all that kind of stuff. Or, if you, retweet our episodes out, and share them with friends and stuff, please. We would appreciate it. I just went through all the doctor stuff. So, again, if you need help, please seek it out. Don't self-medicate. And again, if you feel like you have a really good handle on this, ask your friends.
Absolutely.
Ask your friends to be honest and be ready to accept some things you don't want to hear.
That's okay.
But know it's coming from a loving place.
Y'all are.
Yeah, exactly. Totally lost. I always do this. I completely just drop my train of thought. If you feel as though you may harm yourself or others, or realistically, with like this school shooting that happened and stuff, if you see behavior in other people that seems as though it could be dangerous, to large groups or just themselves, whatever, please report it. Don't stay quiet on it. I mean, cause you never know when saying something could save lives, So please, and if you yourself feel as though you may harm yourself or others, please seek out help. Please don't do anything like that or harm yourself. Please reach out. There's tons of people out there willing to help you. You just have to reach out to them. There's all over the place. You can stay anonymous with things on the internet. You can go to doctors. There's all sorts of ways to deal with this now. One of the great parts of the internet. And then lastly, nope, that wasn't what I was going to say. Reach out to somebody. make sure they're, see how they're doing. If somebody, is kind of going through something, if you notice that their behavior's a little weird or different, just reach out, make sure they're okay. A lot of times when people start behaving differently, something's afoot at the Circle K or so, so yeah, reach out. You never know when it may just make somebody's day. You might really help them, or you might save their life, or you might save others' lives. I mean, really, you never know. So yeah, I think that's it.
Absolutely. And from the sounds of it in the background, if you pick that up on the microphone, my dinner's almost ready. So, time for me to go. Have a great, great week, everybody. Keep smiling. Keep wiggling those toes. Keep breathing. And be safe.